some reflections about codependency that I wanted to share. I am taking another cross-country road trip, making the drive from the Midwest to the West Coast. I'm real excited about a lot of things, about being back on the road, back in a nomadic sort of existence for a while, my ability to reconnect with my loved ones in California who I haven't seen in several months. And I also gotta tell y'all, I am in a lot of feels. This is a really vulnerable subject matter. This is a really tender subject matter. This is something that a lot of us relate to in this society. We really live in a culture that perpetuates codependency, that doesn't help us see that the relationships that have been modeled for us may not exactly be the ones that are healthy for us. There is a lot that I want to say on this subject, so I will certainly be doing other videos talking more in depth about my journey with codependency and out of codependency, into exploring more healthily balanced relationships, how to be an individual and interdependent but not codependent. That is a journey I have really intimately been walking this last year and a half in particular, and I really want to share a lot of the things that I have experienced and learned along that journey, because woo-wee, did I need that kind of support, and I never really got it, and so I had to learn the hard way, and I don't want that for us. So I'm thinking about this topic because I have a sweetie who lives in Omaha, who I've been seeing for quite a good while now. We were able to spend a really lovely weekend together and feel all connected and, soak in that love and snuggliness together. Leaving that is so gut-wrenching hard. So I've just had this a heavy, a sick feeling in my gut, in my stomach since I left this morning. And I'm seeing what it is this, that part of us that wants to feel loved and connected and all wrapped up and intimate and vulnerable and safe with somebody. Humans are social creatures. We're meant to love and be loved. That's what we're born. That's what we're here to do. But I also think that there's an inner child part of us that can feel that really strongly. I was recognizing for myself, there was this inner child part of myself that was no, don't leave. I think that's what the heavy feeling in my gut is. I'm recognizing that it's an inner child part within me who feels why would I let go? My childhood experience was so much about trying to find somebody to connect with and find somebody to understand me and to feel really authentic and vulnerable and safe with and secure with. And I never really found that when I was little. I went through a lot of very hurtful social dynamics that have taken me a long time to heal. That shit stuck with me through my adolescence, through my adulthood, really blocked my capacity to develop friendships in a healthy way later in my life, because that inner child part of me, because never having been able to find that themselves when they were a child, that inner child part of me gets real grabby, gets real oh gosh, okay, maybe this is finally it. This connection I'm having with this person, this experience I'm having with this person right now feels like what I've been looking for. It feels like what we've needed. It feels like what will keep me alive, right? Having those kinds of social connections are not just developmentally appropriate to us, but they are necessary for our survival. So because my inner child felt kind of neglected in that area growing up, I found that I've had to be really aware of how that has shown up in my adult life in ways that keep me grabbing or clinging to people, either through trying to form friendships, or I really, really recognize this in my history and my struggle with chronic monogamy, which lasted from my teenage years until a couple of years ago, when I decided that I was no longer going to be pursuing normative monogamous style relationships anymore, because I feel like that was also part of what was happening in my pattern, is like my inner child would feel that kind of connection within a romantic relationship, and then it would end up just like, I mean, it's such a common relationship thing when two people get together. It's like they hunker down together. Sometimes they lose contact with their friends. Sometimes they lose, hobbies or interests that they had before the relationship, and they just melt together and become a unit of we instead of like two different individuals. And I gotta say, I find a lot of that codependent. I'm not trying to cast judgment on people. If you're watching this and you have a relationship dynamic that is a little bit like that and works for you, like I totally believe that it's possible. I'm not saying that, it's all black or white, good or bad, whatever. I'm just saying I see a lot of codependence in the ways that monogamous relationships are structured, and I experienced that myself. Like that was codependent for me in those relationships, because that was how my inner child was like trying to get that need met. My inner child just wanted to grip onto this person and like, let's just build our own little tiny world around us, and my inner child felt like that's what was gonna get my needs met. And it would feel good for like a few months and then eventually I would have to grapple with like bigger questions of compatibility about the people that I was with, and really bigger questions about myself and like what I need as a unique individual and what kind of a lifestyle actually works for me, instead of like the normative cookie cutter cultural conditioning that we get that says our life is going to look like you get a job, you get a 9-to-5 job, like maybe a good paying job, you get a house, you settle down, you get some pets, you get a romantic partner, you maybe have kids. Like that's the American dream. That's the life, is to exist in that, I'm going to call it an incredibly rigid container that does not allow for the full flexibility of the human experience. I mean, even if we just like zoom out of history for beyond the lifespan of the United States, that is not how people on this land were living prior to white European, white settler colonization. That's not how other cultures exist. I point to that family structure and that particular social conditioning as a really big indicator, as a really big creator of mental illness, of mental health disparities in this country, because we're set up to believe that should make us happy. And there's a whole host of reasons why that's just not going to work. The biggest being, we just cannot get all of our needs met from one person. So this is the realization that I'm having, have been having for a couple of years now, but it continues to like ripple out in different ways for me. And as I'm navigating developing relationships with people, both friendship and intimate romantic relationships, I'm just really recognizing those like lingering threads of codependency that are, or like the neural pathways of codependency that light up for me when certain things come up, such as me having to leave an incredibly cozy, comfortable, wonderful weekend with my lover, to hit the open road alone, to go on this vacation where I know I'm going to see people, but I don't have that like little couple bubble to fall back on. It feels vulnerable. My inner child felt like I was letting go of the thing that I have always wanted. My inner child felt like the answer would have been to stay and like not go on this trip and like hold on to that feeling, hold on to that source of nurturing and get my needs met there, right? Like get my needs met there. I've been talking about this in the context of a tree because I love trees and because trees are amazing, excellent teachers. Nature itself is an amazing, excellent teacher. The best teacher we have access to, the most natural source of information we can find that is untainted by human minds and layers of colonization and white supremacy and patriarchy, etc. Nature tells it like it truly is. So I've been thinking about myself like a tree and my roots as these ways that I'm getting my nutrients met, that I'm getting my needs met. It's like, one of my roots connected in this weekend when I was having a lovely snuggly time with my sweetie. One of my roots connected in and like I was getting so many nutrients from that. I was getting so much of what I need from that, and that felt so good, and it was like I wanted to keep getting that, But if we're just using one root in one source to get our nutrients, to get our needs met, that is a recipe for disaster, right? Like, what if something happens to that root? What if something happens to that nutrient source? That's the issue with codependency, right? When we try to get all of our needs, our love needs in particular, met through one other individual person, we set ourselves up to end up killing that connection to begin with. Because if I'm just constantly pulling nutrients and trying to meet all of my very diverse, very complicated needs as a human being, spiritual, emotional, mental, I'm gonna drain that resource, like one other entity, one resource, one little pocket of soil that I've plugged my root into is not going to be enough to sustain me. I'm going to soak all the nutrients out and I'm going to leave it like dry and cracked, So I was watching my inner child have this need and this desire, and I was also, from these older parts of me, these wiser parts of me now at this place, seeing how if I were to choose and stay, if I were to keep getting my needs met that way, that's eventually what I would do. I would kill the love. I would kill that connection. I would lose my capacity to get resources from that nutrient source at all. And so maybe that's like a nutrient source that really feeds a deep part of me, because it feeds some inner child part of like really wanting to have had a connection like that. But I still have to use my other roots, my other root systems, and where they're plugged into and the resources that they're plugged into, the separate pots of earth or soil or other people or other hobbies, interests, passion projects, like other things that feed me. I feel like this is an antidote to codependency, is for myself thinking about it in this way, for myself thinking about it as though I have a large number of roots and I need to make sure that I'm getting all of my needs met from across the board by using all of my different roots. Not just the one root that's connected to a sweetie, but like also the roots that are connected to friendships, also the roots that are connected to radical fairy culture out in California, also the roots that are connected to just being on the road and having a nomad chapter. I do get some of my needs met through that root. And it's not quite the same needs as are met when I'm like, snuggled up and being held and warm and fuzzy and all that, but it's an important part of me that I still have to feed. If I neglect it and then try to account for that by pulling extra resources from my sweetie root, then again, like I'm depleting. Instead of creating a root system that is self-sustaining, where I'm flexible and not dependent on any one particular resource, any one individual, any one source, not only my job, not only my volunteer work, not only my relationships, not only my passion projects, not only the things that make me feel good. When I'm plugged into all of these simultaneously, I'm more autonomous, I'm healthier. I don't have to pull resources from my sweetie. I can just receive whatever it is that they're giving me and be filled up by that because I've been filling myself up with all the nutrients from all my other root systems as well. So that was something that helped me walk away today, to feel those feelings, to feel that really like sad place in my gut of saying goodbye and letting go of, comfort zone. This time specifically, it was about leaving the comfort zone of like a little couple bubble, but I felt the same thing about leaving my tiny little house in Kansas. It felt like I was leaving a comfort zone there and like letting go of something that I really wanted to cling on to there. But it's helping me diversify. I'm releasing the root systems of my Kansas life. I'm releasing the root systems of the needs I get met in Omaha. I'm like giving those root systems a break, letting them recover, letting them do their own thing, letting them generate their own energy. I'm gonna plug into California for a while, soak in some nutrients there. This is the sort of balanced life and existence that I'm seeking to build for myself. And this is part of why I do feel like, for me, having periodic nomadic chapters is really important in that, because I don't want to, because I'm committed to developing new patterns of how I get my needs met. I'm committed to avoiding entering a codependent relationship dynamic again, where I'm dependent upon somebody else to have my needs met and they're dependent upon me to have their needs met. So it hurts. It's hard. I have emotions. I have feelings. My inner child's like, no, but it's healthy. And like I think this is what adulting actually is like choosing the thing that I know, like body, mind, spirit, soul, know. Choosing the thing that I know is what will continue moving me in the direction that I want to go. That will keep moving me in the direction of health and healing and growth and expansion and creativity and potential, and just make sure that I'm not weighing myself down again, getting too deeply rooted in one spot, depending on one thing for too much of my resources, keeping myself too small because I've created an environment that limits me rather than one that expands and grows me and stretches me, which is sometimes uncomfortable. All right, so those are some day one on the road, headed west, thoughts about life and codependency and meeting our needs and becoming healthier, more liberated, more flexible, more well-rounded, more whole beings on earth right now, which is no easy task because we have a lot of conditioning we're bumping up against and a lot of very real institutionalized ways of being, institutionalized societal operations that often keep us from discovering and being able to lean into the true nature of who we are, which is much more than any label that could ever be placed upon us and much more than any one relationship we could ever have. We are spirits in a body, we are souls in a body, and it is complicated to navigate that in a society designed, built on oppression, and yet here we are, living and learning, messing up, getting back up and doing it again, and damn it, that is all we can do. So let's all feel our feelings, let our inner children mourn if we need to, feel the fear and the uncertainty, feel the urges for our comfort zone, the fear-based messages telling us it's better to stay small, safer to keep small, and let's dust ourselves off and let's do it anyways. One step at a time, y'all. I am all about those baby steps. All right, much love from rural Nebraska, and I look forward to seeing you wherever it is I may see you next.